Dear students, it's a rainy season and I hope you are all enjoying the rains. Today we are going on with the subaltern. Let's see what the subaltern is, its word meaning, where it came from, and its relevance in the present day situation. The term is actually used to denote a ranking officer under the captain in the British Army. So his position is not that of a captain, but less than a captain, a kind of a second lieutenant. So this is the word from where it comes, subaltern. But Antonio Gramsci used the term in the contemporary sense in his book, The Prison Notebooks. Gramsci is actually using the term to refer to not the army officials but to some other people. He specifies the term and what he means by that term in his book, The Prison Notebooks. He refers to the socially subordinated groups that lack the unity and organization of those in power, especially the working class of 1930s. So it is in this sense that he used the term subaltern. They are the socially subordinated groups. They don't have anyone to unite them and organize them. And so naturally, they are much, much less than the mainstream people, in a way, marginalized group. And this is a group of working class people of the 1930s. That was the condition of the working class of 1930s. It is to refer to them that Gramsci used the term the subaltern. So the term subaltern got its present meaning from the day Antonio Gramsci used that word in his prison notebooks. So it is from there the term comes to the modern situation. The term is used by Indian Marxist revisionist historiographers like Ranajit Guha, Partha Chatterjee, Shahid Amin, David Arnold, and Jnanendra Pandey in 1980, and they use the term to refer to all those of inferior rank, whereas Gramsci used the term to refer to the working class people or the workers of the 1930s. Indian Marxist revisionists used the term to refer to all those people of inferior rank because in the Indian situation, this has got much more relevance. So these people, that is Indian Marxist revisionist historiographers, had used that term in only in 1980. They borrowed it from Gramsci and they had given it a new meaning by referring to the inferior rank or people of inferior rank, all those of inferior rank. And it is in that sense that subaltern is used in the present times. So let's see the definition of subaltern in the Indian context. The first definition is taken from Selected Subaltern Studies, which was published in 1988. The definition goes like this: the general attribute of subordination in South Asian society, whether this is expressed in terms of class, caste, age, gender, and office, or in any other way. So, this is the definition of subaltern in the Indian context. So, this Indian context is very much important for us because they are referring to only the particular situation in India and to refer to the people of India. And the subaltern, the use of the word subaltern is in terms of the class, caste, age, gender, and office, or in any other way of these people. Again, you have the idea of Gramsci coming along. He spoke of the oppression of rural peasantry in southern Italy because the rural peasantry in southern Italy were, in a way, suppressed by those in power, and they did not have anyone to speak for them or to unite them. It is in that sense he used the term subaltern in his book. Subaltern Studies Collective drew a parallel with the continued oppression of the rural peasantry, the working class, and the untouchables in post independence Indian society. So, we are coming to Subaltern Studies Collective, and you are having a topic called the subaltern, and you find the development of this particular branch and how it grew into the present situation. This is how it came up. They drew, that is, the Indians drew a parallel with the continued oppression of the rural peasantry, the working class, and the untouchables in post independence Indian society. We are not speaking about what happened before independence, we are speaking about the post independence Indian society. So let's see how this becomes relevant in the subaltern studies. According to Guha, a crisis in the two historiographic traditions in India. That is, there was that crisis, and let's see which all these crises are. One is the European colonizers, and the other is Indian nationalists. And how did they bring up a crisis here? Because European colonizers means it refers to both British and all the other people who came to colonize India. So they say that both colonial and Indian nationalist approaches share a middle class orientation. Again, they continue to say that there was an inability to assign Indian subaltern groups any but the most secondary roles in history. Again, they continue to see them as a passive, naive, potentially archaic, and unstable entity in need of guidance from above. So, the crisis that they speak of comes from the two groups, that is, European colonizers and Indian nationalists. If we are speaking about colonizers, we have a long list of grievances, and we have something against the Indian nationalists also. When we were fighting for freedom, we were intent only on gaining freedom for India. And we got our freedom, but both colonial and Indian nationalists, they have a middle class orientation, an idea of the middle class, and they were not thinking either of the downtrodden or of the very high. And again, they have an inability to give Indian subaltern groups any but the most secondary roles in history. If you read the history of India after independence, you will not find much spoken about the subaltern groups of India, nor is there any reference to the caste system or of the people who are really downtrodden. And these people were seen as a passive, naive, and potentially archaic and unstable entity So these people were considered, they were mainly they were not educated, and maybe because of that they were quite passive. They were so used to receiving orders and obeying them rather than expressing themselves. They were naive, they were too innocent to speak on anything or about people, and they were potentially archaic. They were quite old fashioned, or in that sense that they have no idea that they can speak out. And they were also unstable in the sense that there is no one to unite them. And in that sense, they need guidance from above. In short, these groups really were in need of ruling according to European colonizers and also Indian nationalists. So both groups agree that these subaltern groups really need to be guided or to be provided rules from above, and they must be led in the proper channel. Subaltern studies project counter narration of Indian history. That is, they proposed to have a counter narration of Indian history. Indian history, which dates from the post independence days, needs to be changed, and there should be a place for these subaltern groups also in the right perspective, and only then the Indian history will be complete. So their project is to find out people who had been there and who did not get projected as the main stream people, and their contribution to the development of India or to the Indian history. All these are to be found, and they should be brought to the forefront. So these people have dual tasks before them. The first is an inquiry as to why nationalism failed to include subalternity. And so, naturally, this is the first task before them. The second is to form an archive of historical subaltern literature, including forms of popular and oral culture of the 19th and 20th centuries. First is why nationalism failed to include subalternity, why these people were pushed aside from the history that we read, history that we studied in the schools, and why these people were not included, or why nationalism failed to include them. The second task before them is to form an archive of subalternity, archive of historical subaltern literature, including forms of popular and oral culture of the 19th and 20th centuries, which again comes to the forefront when we think of education, in terms of education, whether they were educated or not, whether it was, that's why there is the oral culture mentioned here, why their oral culture was not transmitted to the mainstream, why it was not collected, and if there is any chance of collecting them and forming historical subaltern literature, an archive of historical subaltern literature, so that their culture will be enriched by this collection, as well as the others also will get to know them properly through their literature, both popular and oral culture. So, this is restricted not to the 20th century alone, but also to the 19th century. The group is really intent on finding out the roots from where their literature came up, and continue with the pursuing of that, and bring to the forefront so that it will enrich the study of literature. Again, you find that uh, these tasks were really something that we can really be assured that it will really be fruitful, because this is something that had brought forth the state of the subaltern, including the people who had been uh, who were not included in the independence struggle, and at the same time they were also people who had been rejected, and this group of people really were not represented by the by history or by anything else. So in terms of class and gender, you find that there is a lot of probing to do. So, in India, especially, colonization was again a factor. But even before colonization and even after colonization, that is, after independence, you will find the caste system prevailing. And the caste system really was not removed completely from the scene even after independence. And the people were those who belong to the system, where you find that there is the four castes, and they feel that they do not even belong to the fourth class, but even much below that, the fifth one. So, this kind of argument from the subaltern had invited much more, and they have their own views about it. So, most people fight for them, but most often they ignore the voice of the subaltern. It is in this sense that Gayatri Chakrabarti Spivak, the diasporic Indian post colonial, post structuralist feminist theorist, comes up with the essay, Can the Subaltern Speak? The name Gayatri Spivak is prominent in the subaltern studies because vehemently she argues with the people, and he even though she agrees with the subaltern studies and the Marxist approach to the historical and also the social changes that will really make India a better place, she has her own arguments about this. Her argument is that the Marxist approach, um, they have they have ignored something, and that is, she says that they have only the male subaltern subject as the primary agent of change. She totally agrees with the subaltern studies, problematizes classical Marxist approach, and effectively, she says it effectively privileges only the male subaltern subject. And they are speaking only of the male subaltern subject as the primary agent of change, even though the Marxists were radical in their approach and their studies were going on to change a historical attitude for the subaltern studies, they are not speaking at all about women. It is in this juncture that Gayatri Spivak comes up with something of her own. And what she has spoken here is about uh, the idea that there are others also to be included, not just the male subaltern subject. It is here that she projects the two central problems with that, and that is the classic Marxist model overlooks the lives and struggles of women before, during, and after India's independence. And she says, though trying to uplift the subaltern, it had failed in the end to alter their social and economic situation. So, when Spivak specifies two problems with the methodology followed by the subaltern studies, we have to consider them properly, because what she says is really true. Because when you speak about the subaltern in general, you are not specifying certain groups of people. And there also you find a lot of marginalization. So she says the lines and struggles of women before, during, and after India's independence. Why are they not looking up, or why are they not projecting the struggles of women who had taken part before the Indian independence in the independence struggle, during the independence struggle, and also after India's independence? A lot of women had taken part, but they have the leadership also, but they were not brought to the limelight in one way or the other. Only very few women came up, and you will say that there are a lot of women whose names are there in the independence struggle. But concerning the subaltern, you will not find any name from the subaltern, especially of women, during or before or during or after India's independence. That is the one of the problems that she points out with this methodology. The second problem is that though they are trying to uplift the subaltern, they had failed in the end to alter their social and economic situation. When you undertake a task, you should not be doing the task on a partly basis, that is just by part, because they are people trying to change the history of India, or trying for an alternative history of India with the subaltern studies. But in spite of these studies going on, it is a huge project, and that project is to find out people who had taken part in the independence struggle, and people who had been there, contributed much to the independence, and all these were going on. But they had failed in the end to alter the social and economic situation of the subaltern, because most of them are socially degraded, and most of them belong to the working class, not just the ordinary working class, but much, much below. And they have no alternative except to depend on their landowner or the people they work for. And there is no option for them either for education or for any other meeting, or having a group or organization, or having contact with the powerful, really powerful people. And that condition was not changed. So Spivak is, in a way, pointing out the loopholes with subaltern studies, which started with the Indian Marxist group, Marxism, and they have Marxist historiographers, and they are intent only in focusing on history. But Spivak says that it's not just the history uh, that is to be regarded alone. We should not overlook the struggles of women. We should also try to uplift the social and economic situation of these subaltern. Only then their uplifting will be complete. Otherwise, what is the use of getting a place in history? Maybe it gives them much pride, but more than that, their condition should be changed. And it must be done from the grassroots level itself. And only then their economic situation will change, and they will be able to earn a little bit and stand on their own feet. Otherwise, their condition will continue to be the same as it had been before the independence, during the time of the time of the colonialism, and even before that also, when there was this existence of the caste system. And it is from there that the women and the subaltern should be moving forth and moving in a different direction. And then, only then, this will be the study will be complete. So Gayatri Spivak has got a condition of her own, and this is why she speaks of the subaltern in her essay, Can the Subaltern Speak? Because it is an essay which is remarkable, and this forms the basis for the subaltern studies much more than the revisionist studies, and this had added in a lot of problems that were not considered by the earlier subaltern studies. This is why Gayatri Spivak comes up with a new project, and also about speaking about the people and also the struggle of women, and um, the uplifting of the social and economic situation of the subaltern, and that too after India's independence. Before independence, we just couldn't do anything about it, but after independence, it is in our hands, and naturally we have to do something about it. About that, Spivak is very specific, and she is also someone who speaks for the women and the struggles they had and their contribution towards the independence in their own way. Maybe not too much, maybe it is regionalized, but even then, their work is remarkable. If you are having a project, then naturally you can delve into these situations in the rural areas and come up with people who had been there and speak to them and find out the way in which these women fought for independence in their own manner. So, this is something that is to be considered and studied in detail, and this in turn will try to uplift the subaltern, and their social and economic situation also will have to be changed. It's not enough that the subaltern studies speak of the historical contribution, the contribution of the subaltern to the development of Indian history. It's not that it is there in the pages of the textbooks, but there should be something prominent, something substantial, like the change in their social condition. People should be able to look at them with equality, and their economic situation also should be changed, because we know that when we speak of the subaltern, we are also speaking about the marginalized group who were not brought to the mainstream, and as such they were pushed to one side by the mainstream people, and socially also they were not given much consideration. In spite of the drafting of the Constitution of India, which grants right to the upliftment of these people, in most areas their condition is much, much worse. And when Gayatri Spivak speaks of it in the 1980s, even in the 2020s, their condition is still the same in some of the rural areas of India, though change has really been there and the subaltern studies had really developed, the condition of these people socially and economically are indeed very, very poor when you check certain areas of India. Because Gayatri Spivak, even though she is a diasporic writer, she can see from where she is standing to these situations, because she can't ignore these people who are already there and for whom a lot of people had been fighting on. And that fight in itself is remarkable. But the thing is that there is to be an improvement to their condition, both of women and for the social and economic situation of the subaltern. Only then the methodology will be really be uh, improved. And so you find here a vehement protest from the part of Gayatri Spivak, and also a suggestion from her part, not just suggestion but pointers which can be taken into consideration and taken as a project. So here you find the first part of Gayatri Spivak's essay is here, and you find it is indeed an essay worth reading. We'll learn more about her essay and the details of Can the Subaltern Speak in our next class. So, till then, I would ask you to go through the topic, the subaltern, which is in page 107 and page 108, because it gives you totally the idea about subaltern studies and how people had started this group or this subaltern studies, and how they have started fighting for a place of representation in the history. And it is that especially for the working class, the untouchables, and also about the untouchables, and it is that you will find in the first part of that topic. And you will also find how the term subaltern came into existence and what it means, and to whom this is referred to. All these you will find in the first part of this topic. It is towards the end, towards the next part, that you come up with a very important name like Gayatri Chakrabarti Spivak, who is a diasporic Indian post-colonial, post-structuralist feminist theorist. These are all the terms to denote Gayatri Spivak, and she is still there, very much alive, and Vermont also. And she is one who points out areas which were neglected in the studies. So she is asking people to include that also, these areas also, in their studies, so that there will be a proper equality which is sanctioned by the Indian Constitution, even for all these subaltern groups. And it is not enough that they are included in history alone, socially and economically also, they should be on equal terms with the rest of India. It is in that sense that she takes these pointers, and also the women. She is not ignoring them, because she has come across studies about the struggles of women and had studied it in detail, and she is intent on including them also, subaltern women who had taken part in the colonial time, during independence and after independence, the struggles that had been going on. And no way will you find their names or the movement that they have started in order to withstand the onslaught of the colonizers. And in their own way, they had been fighting a battle for independence. So all these are to be part of the history, and we can't just ignore women. While actually the subaltern studies were indent only on male counterparts, and they have not specified women. And this is why she is putting this marker, saying that their names or their concern also should be there in the studies. Only then the studies will be complete. In the next class, we'll come across the topic, and naturally an elaboration of can the subaltern speak. Till then, good day. Thank you.